Hey guys, it's Steve from Mantis here. You're listening to the Good Friends Better Enemies podcast, only on the Counted Out 7 YouTube channel. Jay, let's go!
Hello again, wrestling fans, and welcome to a brand new edition of the Good Friends Better Enemies podcast. My name is Jay, and this week I'm joined, as always, by my dear, close, personal, longtime friend, Tyrone. Tyrone, how the heck are you doing? It's October. We're coming into Halloween season. I know your wife loves Halloween. What's going on, pal?
Well, shucky ducky quack quack. Here we are, motherfucker. I am doing well. I am tired. It's busy at work. We know the drill. But I am excited to talk to you about some good old-fashioned pro wrestling. How you doing, buddy?
I am doing well as well, and I'm excited to crack open to this bad boy. When we last left you in the year 1992, ladies and gentlemen, we were talking about WrestleMania 8, which is, in fact, the card that I, your host, Jay, rebooked, along with your other host, Tyrone, in the passenger seat as we wax nostalgic about all things 92. Of course, I had a dream match scenario take place there with the immortal Hulk Hogan going up against the tyrannical Jake the Snake Roberts, just to name one of the matches on the card. Tyrone, now looking back with hindsight in terms of the booking of 1992's offering of WrestleMania, how do you feel about the card overall? I know you're a little bit kind of 50-50 on it back when we recorded some time ago.
I'm definitely a fan of what you did with the main event. I think it was a match that we were supposed to get, but we never got with Jake and Hogan. It was pretty fucking good. There was a couple of things you did that I definitely remember ripping on you, and that was just your position of having Repo Man and Mountie in a tag match to throw them away. Overall, your WrestleMania 8 card, it was fine. It wasn't anything to write home about. But again, it's 1992 WWF. WrestleMania was considered a big event at that time, but it also wasn't the showcase of the Immortals that it is now.
That's very true. I was quite pleased with the Undertaker and $1 Million Man feud as well. I thought that was a fun one. But you're right. You know, with that particular card, there was a lot of moving parts. We discussed at that time about how I really felt like it was sort of the swan song for the Federation years of the WWF in terms of the golden age, rock and wrestling connection, whatever you care to call it. That was kind of the swan song for that particular roster. And then we had that transitional WrestleMania with 9. And then, of course, 10 being the well-established new generation WrestleMania.
But this is where it's weird to me. Like, all right, we're going to sidebar right off the bat here because that's what we fucking do. But when you consider WrestleMania 10 to be the first one of the quote-unquote new generation, would you still have your Randy Savage on there? Is Bret Hart the leader, or is Bret Hart kind of the old school one because he's been a tag team and then became a singles, was challenging for the championship then? I don't know, man. Like, when I think of the new generation, I think of WrestleMania 11 as to be the kickoff of it.
Yeah, I think 10, based on the fact that they were finally kind of going with Bret. I mean, they had gone with him to somewhat of a degree at this point. You'd seen Bret have the championship, winning it in the fall of 1992, then going on to lose it to Yoko in 93, and then having Hogan pick up the title 30 seconds later at WrestleMania 9. This, of course, it being in canon. So I think that this was a time when they finally decided to go with Bret fully as the face of the company, in my eyes.
Yeah, that's fair. I totally understand that, but I'm weird. Like, I don't think of 94 as the new generation. I think of 94 as the transitional period, and 95 is the beginning of the new generation.
Yeah, I think we're probably splitting hairs at this point. I think you can make an argument either way.
That's fair. I mean, to put it into modern terms, like, you've got I know that you're not the most up-to-date with current product all the time, but you've got NXT 2.0 versus NXT, and you have the ones who kind of carried over, like a Tommaso Ciampa, a Johnny Gargano. They were there for a little while, but I don't consider them people of 2.0, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. I completely understand that. They're more of the old guard NXT, if you can call it such a thing. Certainly, you have faces from NXT that are now on the main roster that were established in NXT, homegrown talent, as well as superstars that are now superstars that came from other walks and other promotions. So NXT is definitely deviated from what it was in the beginning, but I think that there is a concerted effort to try to get back to some semblance of what the black and gold was in the beginning.
Well, let's talk about this for a second, because we have not, since we've returned, we really haven't touched on current product at all. I want to know, now that Triple H is at the helm, leading creative, Stephanie McMahon and Nick Khan being the board of directors, I believe they are, is their official position. But with Triple H leading,
co-CEOs.
Thank you. With Triple H leading the helm to a degree, and with certain returns that we just saw the return of Bray Wyatt, we've had Braun Strowman, you have Johnny Gargano, Candice LeRae, Dexter Lumis, Dakota Kai, Io Shirai, Io Sky, sorry, but a whole bunch of them returning. Do you think we're going to keep going down that route, or do you think that we have seen what we're going to see? And are you happy with it? Are you happy with Bray Wyatt being back? Are you happy with all these other names coming back?
I think for me, if I'm kind of picking apart where I land on all this, I definitely have seen a change in the tenor and tone of the product. Certainly on the main roster. I haven't been watching a lot of NXT. I think as well, for me personally, I was so burnt out on the product before we had this change and this shift in creative that it really hasn't brought me back to full-time viewership. Now, I've certainly checked it out a little bit more than I was when we had the sort of paint by numbers Raw and SmackDown that we had for the last several years. So I am interested more than I have been in terms of weekly television. It's a wait and see for me. I think that there's definitely, again, a change in direction. There's a little bit more story being told. Some of the ideas in terms of gimmicks that weren't really clicking with me as a viewer have been dropped. I mean, I look, for example, at somebody that I point to immediately being Chad Gable. I think that Chad Gable could be this generation's version of Kurt Angle if booked correctly. I think that he has all the potential in the world. I think he's an absolutely phenomenal athlete. So I'd love to see them do more with him, which they are now in this tag team. Now, so that's an example of someone that I was really pleased to see was getting away from that ludicrous Shorty G gimmick and now is doing something more substantial.
The Shorty G gimmick was a fucking monstrosity. It should not have ever happened. But I feel the same way. I think Chad Gable is an incredible athlete and should be higher in the card. But I also believe that pairing him with Otis and having kind of the brawn and the brain, if you will, together makes sense. Because you look at Kurt Angle's career, and there were times where he was kind of the comedic character. And Chad Gable is going into that position so incredibly well that I want to see the Alpha Academy turn into... I don't know, there's nothing I can compare it to. I want them to turn into a stable where they potentially add more and they keep going off of the collegiate background, but they still have fun with it. Like, okay, in NXT, they had Diamond Mine for a while where you had Roddy Strong, you had Ivy Nile, you had the Creed brothers, you had Damon Kemp. They could have been that way, but I feel like they put too much pressure on Roddy Strong where he couldn't perform in the comedic aspect. We know he's a fantastic athlete, but when it comes to mic skills, he's kind of lacking. So if you did something like that on the main roster with Chad Gable as the leader, I am all in for it.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know for me personally if I necessarily need to see anybody added to the act. I think that what this particular pairing has kind of done for Gable specifically is it's highlighted what he's able to do. Not only in ring, I mean, that was obvious and has been for quite some time, but in terms of his personality, I think it's given him an opportunity to really shine as a performer and as a sports entertainer. So I think that really what this has done is it's opened eyes that he has all these tools, not just the wrestling background. And now that we've seen what he's capable of, I don't want to see these two break up at any time in the near future. But I think that what we've done here is we've teed up a very successful singles run and sort of a repackaging, a reigniting of Chad Gable's career.
Okay, but I understand where you're saying you don't want to see anybody with them, but think of the potential of a Shelton Benjamin in there, or a Cedric Alexander or even a T-Bar, like all these guys who are kind of regulated to main event, but have such a goddamn storied career, whether it be collegiate, whether it be professional, they could do wonders in there. And I think that that's kind of what we're lacking right now is, okay, so to put it back to kind of the era that we grew up with, look at Lance Storm with Team Canada. Lance Storm was already fantastic, but when you add Elix Skipper, when you add, oh, Jesus Christ, I'm drawing a blank right now on who else was in there. But then they threw in the major guns for the sex appeal. They threw in the Jim Duggan just for shits and gigs. I think that that could be kind of where we go with this.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. I'm not really sure at this point where they're going to go with it. The creative is certainly, as I said, gotten a really good shot in the arm here. So I'm very excited to see where we go into WrestleMania season. There's a lot of rumors about what's going to happen at this year's WrestleMania, which actually I'm going to also continue on your sidebar just briefly. I wasn't intending to talk about current day product, but I will say, Tyrone, you and I have talked about this on a number of occasions. For the longest time, the prospect of seeing Rock versus Roman Reigns was nothing I was particularly interested in. I will say, based on how Roman Reigns has been booked now, I would be very, very fascinated to see that particular matchup. Now, putting aside whether you want to see it or not, I think I know where you land unless your particular opinion has changed. How would you bring The Rock back if you were to do this road to WrestleMania?
So I'm going to start off right now with, I don't know what you thought I was going to say, but yes, I actually do want to see this match. And what I would do is I would have Roman come out. So he's going up against fuckboy YouTube guy, Logan Paul, at Crown Jewel coming up. Then we get past Crown Jewel. I don't really see Roman being involved in a Survivor Series program just because the build, it's not really there. You go to the December pay-per-view, he may or may not be on it. I don't know. And the thing is, I'm also not mad at Roman kind of taking more of a part-time aspect to this. It makes sense to me where the championship is a special thing. You almost don't want to see it on a weekly basis. So I am A-okay with him being gone for a lot of the time, showing up, making his appearances. I know a lot of people shit on that. They're like, no, the champion should always be there. I disagree. He's there more than a Brock Lesnar, but he's not as much as a Seth Rollins, we'll say. But I would have Roman go up against, like, I'm trying to think who's really left. Like, I don't think we've seen him in Orton, and I don't know if Orton's cleared or if he's coming back anytime soon. But I would almost have him defeat Orton at the Royal Rumble, go into Monday Night Raw after and be like, look, there's nobody that can face me. We don't know who's going to win the Royal Rumble. Okay, so as we record this right now, it is October. Rumble's in January. It could really be anybody. It could be a Matt Riddle. It could be a Nakamura. It could be a fucking Johnny Gargano. Who the hell knows? But what I would do is have whoever wins the Rumble come out and say that they refuse to acknowledge the tribal chief. Go into a storyline and then maybe have them be like, all right, here's the thing. I'm willing to give up my Royal Rumble or my WrestleMania title shot if you will face a partner of my choosing. Is this stupid booking? Probably, because if you win the Rumble, obviously you want to go on to WrestleMania. But it's really the only way I can see The Rock coming back into it, because I don't want The Rock to win the Rumble. I want someone to win the Rumble and bring The Rock as their replacement. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, it does make sense. I kind of land on the other end of it. I think the way to bring him back would be as a surprise entrant in the Rumble and have him win it. There's been a lot of talk and speculation that Roman might defend his championship on both nights, which is kind of an interesting idea. One thing that was...
I haven't heard that, but I like that.
Yeah, the one thing that kind of crossed my mind was maybe you have him versus Cody on night one. Maybe he drops the title to Cody, and then the next night he faces Rock one-on-one, or vice versa. Personally, for me, I don't want to see Roman lose the title until WrestleMania 40. I've been along since quite steadfast about that. I'd like to see him get a Bruno-style run. I'd love to see him hold the championship for at least another year and a half or so.
I want Roman to break Bruno's record at this point.
Yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily feasible,
But you got to keep in mind, like, if he doesn't, nobody else will. Like, this is the closest that we have come. What's Roman at? Almost 1,000 days right now.
Something like that. I think so. Yeah.
And what's Bruno's all-time record? 2,200.
I don't recall.
I think it's somewhere around there. You know what? I'm going to look it up right now while we're talking. But I think that Roman Reigns is honestly the closest thing that could come to it, because he is the golden goose right now. We're never going to see another John Cena. John Cena should never get another title run. But who else does the company have? Like, is there anybody in your mind who could be the next big name where so Bruno was 2,800 in 3 days.
Yeah. So that would mean that Reigns would have to hold on to the title for another probably 3 or 4 years.
All right. So that's not going to happen.
Well, it's certainly possible. I don't know if it's going to happen, but
say Reigns is still champion in 2 years. Are you going to get sick of it and want somebody to beat him, or are you still waiting to see?
I think that it might be one of these cases where people will get sick of it for a while, but then when he continues to hold on to it, it's going to continue to build anticipation as to who the next guy is who's going to take it off him. So it's almost like there's, like we talk about this all the time on the show, ebbs and flows. So I feel like there might be ebbs and flows in terms of his popularity as champion. I definitely don't think that he should be turning face anytime soon.
Agreed.
But I don't know. I definitely have the impression that if he goes up against Rock, it would be, I don't know if it would be for the championship, but I think that it would be time for Rock to pass the torch. Not to say that he hasn't already to Cena and things of that nature, but I would think
and
that Rock would need to do the job for Reigns.
Roman has to win that match 100%.
Mm-hmm.
But now let me ask you this. Would the Roman gimmick that is going on right now be as strong without the Usos or without Sami Zayn or without Solo Sikoa?
I think so. I don't necessarily pay as much attention to the window dressing, for the lack of a better term. I think that Reigns was established quite well before he started bringing his family into it. And I was actually quite content with him just being with Heyman. And I have to contradict something you said earlier. I do think that we're going to see the Bloodline in one of those War Games matches at Survivor Series. I think they're going to come up with some sort of team that's going to challenge them. I'm not sure what exactly that's going to look like.
I don't think Roman will be in it. I think it'll be Sami Zayn, Solo Sikoa, and the Usos.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. I'm getting the impression that we might be seeing. I think we're building towards Sami Zayn being somehow swerved out of this whole deal at some point. I'm not sure if they're going to pull the trigger on that now, but
I think we're building to either Sami Zayn winning the Royal Rumble or Sami Zayn challenging Roman at the Rumble.
It could be. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't see Zayn winning the Rumble, but I'm not 100% sure, obviously.
That's fair, but also 3-4 years ago, did you see Nakamura winning the Rumble?
Yeah, but they didn't do anything with him. So I would hope that whomever they decide to pull the trigger on for this year's Mania, or rather this year's Rumble win going into Mania, I think that it really has to be someone strong. I mean, we'll see when Cody Rhodes is, when he's feeling better and when he's cleared to come back. Maybe I think he would be the logical choice to win the Rumble if he's back in time. But again, I really like the idea of The Rock being a surprise entrant in the Rumble and winning it as well.
But also Bray Wyatt, like, he's just back, so you have to keep him strong.
For sure, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to put him in the title picture. Bray Wyatt's one of those characters who doesn't have to have a championship, and I think they put way too much on him in the beginning of his run as The Fiend. Him having the championship within 2 months of starting that gimmick was way, way too much, in my opinion.
Bray Wyatt's return is the thing that is the most interesting to me right now, especially the way they did it at Extreme Rules with having all the Funhouse characters in real life and hearing rumors of who might be in his stable. Like, I've heard Joe Gacy from NXT, Grayson Waller, Alexa Bliss, obviously. I think that we are gearing up to a really fun time, and I think that's going to be potentially the War Games match against the Bloodline.
Oh, it's possible. They don't have that much time at this point to build that. So if they're going to do it, they have to start getting on that if they're going to do some sort of a faction on faction type warfare. We'll have to see what happens. I am excited for the Survivor Series, and mainly because, ladies and gentlemen, for the second time ever in our illustrious podcast's history, Tyrone and I will be recording together in the same room for Survivor Series weekend. We're not 100% sure which episode we're going to be covering as of yet. We have an idea of which one we're going to do, and it's going to be Survivor Series related, but I'm very, very excited for that entire weekend. And in fact, we're going to have ourselves a humdinger on the 26th of November here in Markham, Ontario, Canada.
We're going to be cracking some beers for the working men. That's what we're going to be doing.
100% we are. It's going to be a gay old time. I can't wait.
Well, I think that's a good little sidebar there. We rambled for almost 20 minutes. So, guys, we're talking about SummerSlam 1992 here. It took place. I'm sure you all, if you don't know where it took place, first of all, grow the fuck up, learn professional wrestling. But it took place at the Wembley Stadium in England. It had a quote unquote record attendance of 80,355. But let's be real. It was probably closer in the 72,000 mark, which is still a lot of people. It's a bunch of soccer hooligans going there and cheering for fucking Randy Savage or the Ultimate Warrior. It took place August 29th, 1992, but it didn't air until the 31st. This is one of those weird times where they pre-recorded a pay-per-view. You can't get away with that nowadays, can you? It goes everywhere. But I'm not going to lie. I don't like this pay-per-view. I like the main event. I have to like the main event. I'm a wrestling fan. It's a fucking fantastic match. But for the most part, this card sucked. So I'm very excited to see what Jay has done with this. Are you ready, Jay? Should I get them amped up as to what we did beforehand, where we left off at WrestleMania, or do you want to just dive into it?
Well, let's just do a quick crash notes in terms of where we left off at WrestleMania 9, or rather WrestleMania 8, so that way we can get ourselves into the summer of 1992.
All right, we're going cliff notes here. I'm not giving you anything that really happened in the matches, just the win and loss. The most important part to me about WrestleMania 8 is that Jake kept Reba McEntire singing the national anthem. That holds a special place in my heart. But he had the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, going up against El Matador, Tito Santana, and defeating him. The LOD took on the Beverly Brothers and got the win there. Ted DiBiase took the L to the Undertaker. IRS and Owen Hart had a wonderful match with Owen Hart taking the win. Jay did me solid here and had the Nasty Boys retain the tag titles over the Natural Disasters. Tatanka beat Skinner. Bret the Hitman Hart took on Roddy Piper and won. I don't know why. I think that's wrong, but we'll talk about that later. The match that I chirped Jay the most for, the Repo Man and the Mountie defeated Hacksaw Jim Duggan and the Texas Tornado, because, you know, that's what you do with Kerry Von Erich in 1992. What else did we have? We had Sergeant Slaughter lose to Psycho Sid, because, of course, it's Jay, so Sid won. Ric Flair defeated Randy Savage. We had Big Boss Man defeating Rick the Model Martel, and we had the immortal Hulk Hogan defeating Jake the Snake Roberts.
Yes, indeedy doodle. We sure did. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, Tyrone, why don't you bring us back to that fateful night in London, England at the Wembley Stadium and bring us up to speed with our opening contest.
Dark match or no?
Certainly.
Oh, all right. Well, originally our dark match, we had two dark matches to start. The first one was Hacksaw Jim Duggan and the Bushwhackers taking on and defeating the Mountie and the Nasty Boys. Now, considering the Nasty Boys are tag team champions right now, I feel like this is changing a bit.
The dark match opening contest for SummerSlam 1992 is the Mountie and the Nasty Boys going up against Tatanka, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and Virgil.
Yeah, just keep talking. I'm not happy right now.
A nice paced six-man tag team match to whet the appetites of the massive card. No backstory really here. After several quick tags, the finish comes as the Nasties, Virgil, and Hacksaw brawl on the floor. The Mountie in the ring has the upper hand on Tatanka, hitting him with a suplex and an elbow drop. With the referee's attention turned to the action outside, the Mountie goes for the shock stick. As the Mountie turns to use the weapon, Tatanka, now on the second rope, nails a tomahawk chop for the pin. Your winners, Tatanka, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and Virgil.
So Are the Nasties still the tag team champions, or is there something going on right now?
I'm going to fill you in on it, buddy, but don't you worry. I've done the Nasty Boys proud.
So far, you have not, but okay. Are we going with the second dark match, or is that the only one?
No, we're going to skip right into the main card now.
All right. Well, our opening contest on the main card was the Legion of Doom going up against Money Incorporated. LOD won originally. You know me, I'm not the biggest LOD fan. I definitely prefer Money Inc. because of their in-ring work, but I don't know. What are we going to do, Jay? You're already off to a terrible start, so let's see what you do.
Well, I've actually kept this match the same as in canon. I really like these two teams on paper in terms of their star power on the card. I think it's a really nice way to get the crowd going on the actual pay-per-view. Have LOD come out with the motorcycles. Money Incorporated obviously did their great fanfare as well. I didn't really think there was much to change here. I really enjoyed the match, and I really liked all the personalities in the ring. So I just decided to keep this one as is.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, you want to make the crowd happy. I get it. I'm not an LOD fan for the most part, but I completely understand you keeping this. It makes sense. We'll move on to the next one, which obviously has changed what you did with the dark match, but we had Nails going up against Virgil. And before we get into this, Jay, I'm sure the match is completely different, but I want to know, do you have an opinion on Nails at all, or just fuck them, whatever?
Well, spoiler alert, he's not on my card, and I don't really know at this point. I have no mention of him. Now, mind you, Tyrone and ladies and gentlemen, that we are only covering the pay-per-views of 1992, so there's been a big gap here between WrestleMania 8 and SummerSlam 92. I'm not sure at this point if he's going to be brought in, if he's going to be a thing. He was around for such a short period of time. I don't know if it's worth.
So if you don't have him on your card, can we just agree that Nails never existed?
I'm fine with that.
All right, cool. Fuck him.
He touched my dink.
Exactly. And we're not talking about Doink the Clown there, kids.
Yeah.
All right. Well, taking its place.
We have Rick, the Model Martel, going up against Crush.
Okay. So I definitely want to hear what you have here, but I'm kind of pissed off because I loved the Rick Martel Shawn Michaels match where the stipulation was no punching in the face. So you better do something good here.
This is a showcase for Crush, a well-worked encounter with Martel putting over Crush's offense as only he can. The finish comes as Martel hits a drop kick from the second rope for a near fall. As the model attempts a Boston Crab, Crush kicks out, sending Martel face first into the top turnbuckle. Martel turns around and is greeted to a tilt-a-whirl slam for the win and the pin by Crush. Your winner, Crush.
So here's my main issue with this. Not only did you take away the Shawn Michaels Martel match, but if you look further into the card, you had a showcase match for Crush where he went up against the Repo Man, and they already had some built-in chemistry after being tag team partners for a little while in Demolition. It's fine. If you wanted a showcase match for Crush, I probably just would have kept Crush and Repo Man.
Yeah, that's fair. I thought we could do a little better than Repo. No offense to him. I also felt like Repo, at this point, he was under a year in the company. He hadn't been doing a ton. He was still a fairly fresh name in terms of the gimmick. So,
but okay, so you can't say that Repo is only a year in the company. The gimmick was only a year in the company.
That's what I meant, and that's what I meant.
Do I?
Yes, you do.
Okay. I mean, I'm not going to lie. So far, your card is worse than the original card. So,
well, we will see where we go.
You better step it the fuck up because the next match on the card was Rick Martel and Shawn Michaels. I do better.
Next match on the card is for the World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Championships, and it is the Natural Disasters, your champions, going up against Bo and Blake, the Beverly Brothers.
All right, how are they champs? We left with the Nasties being champs, and I swear to God, if the Beverlys don't walk out with the title right now, I might just quit the show.
Following WrestleMania, the Disasters were granted a rematch for their tag team championships. After an unsuccessful attempt to get intentionally disqualified by the Nasties, Quake and Typhoon finally capture the titles. As spring turns to summer, the Beverleys are amassing several high-profile victories as well, most notably over LOD. The match is signed for the tag team titles at SummerSlam. Jack Tunney names the Nasty Boys as the number one contenders to the championships and will challenge whichever team leaves London with the titles. The match is very much the same as it is in canon. The finish comes as Typhoon has been worked over by the Beverleys for some time. Quick tags and isolating the big man have Typhoon sucking wind. A hot tag to Earthquake sees the Vancouver native clearing house. Blake is sent over the top rope to the floor. Bo is scoop slammed and poised to be the recipient of an Earthquake splash. As Quake springs off the ropes, Blake hooks Quake's leg. Earthquake tumbles to the canvas. Bo drop kicks a spent Typhoon, now back in the ring, sending Typhoon into the far corner. As Bo rolls over Earthquake, Blake lands a Tennessee Jam off the top rope for the pin. Your winners and new World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Champions, the Beverly Brothers. The brothers make a quick exit with the titles and Genius in tow as the disasters collect themselves.
Jay, this might be the most fucked up thing I've ever said to you, but I want to suck your dick for making the Beverleys champions.
Jeez, that's maybe a little. It's hypothetical. It's okay.
I love this. Clearly, I love this. Otherwise, I wouldn't have said that. But yes, I'm A-okay with this win. I love the way you laid it out. You finally made this card okay. I'm still trying to figure out how you made the Nasties okay because you had them on the dark match. You said you treated them right. I'm still waiting to see what happens.
The number one championship. They're going to challenge for the titles, so they're still in the hunt.
So what you're saying is down the road we're going to get the Beverleys versus the Nasties.
Kind of fun, I think. It's a nice idea to have a couple of heel teams go at it. Why not?
I fucking love it. Yeah, okay. So you got off to a bit of a slow start with me with things I wasn't feeling, but this caught my attention. Bo and Blake with the belts, love it.
Next match on the card is what, sir?
Well, it was the Natural Disasters against the Beverly Brothers, but we're not there. So what do we got?
Well, the next match on the card is a newly debuted on World Wrestling Federation television, rather. The bad guy, Razor Ramon, going up against El Matador Tito Santana.
So I'm just going to assume this is a showcase for Razor. You put him up against the right guy with Tito Santana, who you know is going to sell for him, bump for him, giving some offense, but has no problem losing.
Yeah, another showcase match, this time for Razor. No real story here. The match is well worked and a good way to get Razor Ramon over with an established star. A flying forearm attempt on the part of Tito is countered into one of Razor's patented hard right hands. With a dazed Santana on the mat, Razor executes a fallaway slam, followed by the Razor's Edge for the pin. Your winner, Razor Ramon.
Yep, like it. Like Razor on the card. Tito's the right guy to put him with. It makes sense at that point. Yeah, I'm totally okay with this.
Alrighty. That sounds lovely.
He had crushing the Repo Man, so we know we're not there.
Next match on the card is the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, accompanied by the sensational Sherry, going one-on-one with Randy Macho Man Savage.
Okay. Yeah, you definitely got my attention here. Now, okay, so here's what I'm thinking. Like, we have Macho Man Randy Savage, who is a well-known main event star. You have Shawn Michaels, who they're clearly trying to elevate. Now, I want to know what's going to happen here. Does the HBK come out on top, or does the Randy Savage look at him and go, just here for a cup of coffee with the cream? Oh, I'm not even going to try and do the voice because I'm failing right now. Tell me what we got, Jay.
Well, after costing Savage the championship rematch, Shawn Michaels is more self-assured than ever. More on that particular piece of business later on in the broadcast, ladies and gentlemen. The young upstart has been walking in tall cotton and attained victories left, right, and center. After a few weeks, it seems that Macho Man will not respond to the unprovoked attack. In an interview with Gene Okerlund on Superstars, HBK declares himself the wrestler of the 90s and that nobody comes close. As Sean and Sherry prepare to take their leave, Savage appears. Sherry, being all too familiar with that crazed look in Randy's eyes, heads out of Dodge. Michaels arrogantly chews his gum with a smirk on his face as Savage then rushes Sean and double legs him to the platform. After a barrage of hard rights, the two are separated by WWF officials. The following week on Superstars, Savage has an interview of his own. Randy states that he knows why Michaels did what he did. Sean went after the biggest shark in the ocean to make a name for himself. The oldest story in history. The Macho Man declares that he is a stepping stone for no man, and that at SummerSlam, HBK and Sherry will learn once and for all what the madness is all about. The match is made official later on in the program. The weeks leading to the spectacular, the two men exchange promos and observe each other's in-ring work. HBK continues to taunt Randy, sending a hesitant Sherry to the ring as a distraction on more than one occasion. The go-home Superstars finds both men in action and earning victories. The show closes with Savage accidentally nailing Sherry as Sean threw the sensational one in the path of a clothesline intended for HBK. As we go off the air, Savage is distraught and livid. At the pay-per-view, the match is a classic as you'd expect. Sherry is absent from ringside. It's a one-on-one encounter for the ages. Savage has the upper hand early, delivering fast-paced offense, a series of clotheslines, a scoop slam, a knee drop from the second turnbuckle on the inside has Sean down for a near fall. As Sean continues his onslaught, as Savage continues his onslaught, Michaels manages to gain the upper hand with a back body drop attempt countered into a swinging neck breaker. Sean works over the breadbasket and then sends Randy into the ropes for a double clothesline. With both men down, we get a hard 8 count before both men get to their feet. The two exchange hard rights. Sean has Randy hooked with a headlock as he charges off the ropes for momentum. Savage counters Sean via escape from the headlock. Sean springs off the ropes himself, only to be caught, or rather, Savage springs off the ropes himself, only to be caught by a crescent kick. With Macho Man down, HBK then goes to the high rent district to land the ultimate insult, a top rope elbow of his own. Michaels gets a 2 3/4 count. A frustrated Michael argues with referee Danny Davis as Savage collects himself. Michaels then grabs Savage by the head and neck. Sean attempts his patented side suplex, which Randy counters into a crossbody for a near fall. A stunned Michaels gets to his feet as Savage attempts another clothesline. Michaels evades the clothesline and goes for another crescent kick. Savage counters with a roll-up for the pin. Your winner, Randy Macho Man Savage.
So I just want to applaud you right off the bat by putting a nice little touch there with Danny Davis being the official. Like that a lot. I like this. I think this makes sense. It's the young buck going after the seasoned vet, and he almost gets him. It does not hurt Shawn Michaels at all to lose to a Randy Savage. Randy Savage is fucking Randy Savage. He can freak out all he wants. But I love this match. I love the picture that you painted for this. I'm sorry that I gave you shit for taking the Martel Michaels match away, because this is fucking brilliant.
Well, thank you very much, sir. Sorry about my misreading there of my notes. A couple of occasions I mistook Savage for Michaels. So my apologies, ladies and gentlemen. Just finished a long work day, so I might be a little bit worse for the wear with reading. But here, nonetheless, is the match that Savage will have.
Jay, don't apologize for anything. It's our goddamn show. They're tuning in. They can learn to fucking love it. We make this.
Well, I really enjoyed putting that one together. I was thinking in my mind, actually, while I was writing it, about how it was almost apropos of the Steamboat Savage match from WrestleMania 3 in terms of the move by move, how I wanted to lay it out. And I kind of like the idea of Savage catching a quick one on Sean and evading the super kick. And the other thing, too, about this is I think it really leaves things open-ended for, hey, why not get a rematch down the road? Just because Savage won this one doesn't mean that Sean doesn't get another crack at him down the road, right?
So there's one spot that I wish you put in this match that you didn't, and that is Shawn Michaels is known for playing kind of possum and just putting a boot up when somebody comes off the top rope.
Yes.
I wish we had that.
Yeah,
That is,
well, we can always put that in
that
rematch.
fair. That is legitimately the only thing that I would add to this. This is, you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb. This is the best booking you have ever done of a match.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that.
Well, up next was our WWF Championship match with the Ultimate Warrior and Randy Savage going up against each other. So I'm very curious to see what you got now.
Next matchup on our card is for the World Wrestling Federation Championship, and it is your champion, Nature Boy Ric Flair, going up against Rowdy Roddy Piper.
Jesus Christ. So we're following Michaels and Savage with Piper and Flair.
We sure are.
You know what? You and I do these things called ebbs and flows where you need the popcorn match or something like that. When it's SummerSlam or WrestleMania, I don't want a popcorn match. I want to be going hard all goddamn night long. And then by the time the main event ends, I want to go to bed because I am exhausted. So let's fucking go, bud.
You got it. So after WrestleMania, Ric Flair is riding high. With Mr. Perfect in his corner, it seems that the Nature will be reigning as champion for years to come. With Randy Savage still hot on his heels, the two would meet at Madison Square Garden for a no-holds-barred rematch in late May. During the bout, Savage had the upper hand. After subduing Perfect with a chair, Savage was poised to deliver the elbow until Shawn Michaels would run in and push Savage off the top rope. After Flair nails Savage with brass knuckles, the figure four is applied. A non-responsive Savage would be then called out as Earl Hebner calls for the bell and Flair retains the title. This match was basically a non-responsive Savage not able to answer the referee's count. The following week on Superstars, Flair and Perfect are on a special Piper's Pit. The duo gloat about how wonderful they are and the championship reign that they've amassed as Piper looks disgusted. Roddy verbally takes both men to task. Hot Rod makes it clear that although he might have the hardware, he's no champion. Roddy then asks Flair if he remembers what happened during their match at the Royal Rumble. Flair laughs off the question and along with Perfect take their leave. As Piper closes the segment, Flair and Perfect attack Piper from behind and put the boots to him. The pair leave Piper laying after a few well-placed chair shots to the arms and back. With Piper absent from WWF television, Flair and Perfect cut repeated promos on Superstars exclaiming that they have retired the Hot Rod. In a rare in-ring appearance, Jack Tunney interrupts one of these promos and announces that Piper is the new number one contender and that the two will meet at SummerSlam. Piper would make his return to television 2 weeks before SummerSlam, having been on the shelf since the attack 2 months earlier. During that time, WWF announcers would speculate if Roddy would even be capable of having another match. Rumors persisted that Piper was in no condition to compete. Piper put these whispers to bed, looking lean and mean and cutting a promo of his own that London Bridge may not be falling down, but the championship and his perfect poodle would be taking the fall at SummerSlam 1, 2, 3. The go-home Superstars would see Piper and Perfect in the ring exchanging barbs as Flair attempts a sneak attack. Piper takes a powder and the two men are left wondering if Roddy can indeed overcome the odds. At SummerSlam, the two men would meet. Piper is out first with the Balmoral Highlands playing Scotland the Brave. Next, we have Flair with Perfect. The match is a brawl at the open. Piper is all over Flair. The two men battle on the outside of the ring, trading chops and rights. The referee has his eyes locked on Perfect as Flair make their way, the referee has his eyes locked on Perfect as Piper and Flair make their way back inside the ring. Flair gains the upper hand with a chop block and spinning toe hold. As Piper manages to reach the bottom rope, Perfect grabs Flair's hand and offers more leverage on the maneuver. Tim White breaks the hold and ejects Perfect from the ringside area. After protesting his innocence, Perfect heads back to the dressing room. Meanwhile, Flair continues to work over Piper's leg. As Flair is poised to apply the figure four, Piper manages to execute a small package for a near fall. Flair, in disbelief, charges Roddy, who pokes Flair in the eye. Hot Rod makes a comeback. Hard rights, a body slam. Building up ahead of steam, Piper then nails Flair with a hard clothesline followed by a knee to the, quote, lower abdomen, to which the ref warns Piper to keep it above the belt. Just as this happened, Flair lands a low blow of his own, forcing Roddy down to his knees and brings Tim White down with him. With the ref down, Perfect makes his way back to ringside. The two beat down Piper again. Perfect and Flair send Piper to the outside and celebrate in the ring. Piper returns with a chair and lays both men out with vicious chair shots to the back. As this happens, Tim White calls for the bell. Your winner by disqualification, Rowdy Roddy Piper. After the match, Piper and Flair scurry back to the locker room as Piper soaks up the adulation from a massive audience.
So the thing that I really like here is that you gave Roddy Piper a title match, which, to my knowledge, other than Hogan in '85, he never really had one. So I do like that. I get the DQ finish. I get it because, if we're being honest, Piper never really wanted to get pinned. I feel like he would have been fine with it being Flair, but I see what you're setting up here. I can't tell if we're going to a Piper rematch or maybe a Survivor Series match with Piper leading a team and Flair leading a team. But either way, I'm okay with this. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And I totally get that. I think from where we were in terms of the actual match in canon, I really didn't want to do Warrior and Savage again. And I felt like this would be a better match. It's a better story. Certainly in our universe here that we're creating, we've already have a built-in storyline with Flair and Piper. And I feel like it was natural, especially based on the fact that Piper went over on Flair at Rumble, that it would make sense for him to be a challenger as well. So I think that there's a lot of continuity here. And I also just think that even in canon, that original match at SummerSlam was actually a DQ as well. So why not just let this follow suit? People were very happy to see Piper, very happy to see Flair. It never made any sense to me that Flair was there in attendance and canon didn't have a match. So it makes sense to me to kind of go down this road.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I'm also A-okay that the Ultimate Warrior is not in the main event, or sorry, the title match. I'm assuming not on the card, which I am A-okay with. I was kind of over Warrior by this point. Now, if he does show up, I'll eat my words later. But yeah, I'm cool with this. Are you ready to move on to the next?
Yes, sir.
So up next, we had a wonderful 3.5-minute match between The Undertaker and Kamala.
Next match on the card is The Undertaker going one-on-one with Papa Shango.
Okay, I think I like this a little bit better, but I got to be walked through it because you know me, I love Kamala, but I also love Papa Shango, so I really want to see where we're going here.
Okay, so following WrestleMania, The Undertaker is ready to move past the $1 Million Man. Having defeated DiBiase soundly, it seems that the dead man will reign in dominance for years to come. Weeks later, after a victory on Superstars over a local enhancement talent, smoke billows throughout the arena. The lights flicker and Papa Shango emerges from under the ring. A shocked Paul Bearer, now in the ring, clutches the urn and steps behind The Undertaker. Shango holds his customary skull and seems entranced at the sight of the Death Valley native. The urn begins to shake in Bearer's hands. Paul is compelled to open the top of the urn. As the cap is removed, an orange smoke pours out from the top and seemingly scorches The Undertaker's face. Bearer drops the urn in agony as the heat of the vessel is too much to bear, no pun intended. We go off the air with Shango laughing while Paul Bearer attempts to aid the dead man. As several weeks go by, Papa Shango, now managed by Harvey Whippleman, cuts various promos. The duo are steadfast that The Undertaker is now a madman and that Paul Bearer is bedridden with fear. As we approach the match, The Undertaker's gong is heard during Shango's matches. No sighting for the dead man or Paul Bearer. When we get to Wembley, Shango is out first with Harvey in tow. The Undertaker emerges with the hearse just as in canon. The hearse stays at ringside during the bout. The two men throw bombs and we have an all-out brawl. The ref allows quite a bit of latitude in this one. The two combatants exchange the upper hand with Shango getting the better of The Undertaker. A lumbering clothesline followed by a shoulder breaker for a near fall. Shango becomes entranced as he chokes the prone dead man. Taker then counters with a choke of his own. Slowly rising to his feet, The Undertaker manages to land a desperation chokeslam. Both men are on the canvas. Whippleman gets on the apron and is pleading with Shango to rise. Bear pulls Harvey down and nails him with the urn. Shango, now on his feet, is oblivious to this and puts the boots to The Undertaker. Taker sits up. The two men exchange more bombs. Taker gets the upper hand and lands a series of throat thrusts and a big boot. A staggered Shango bounces off the ropes and is scooped up for a tombstone pile driver for the win. Your winner, The Undertaker. After the match, The Undertaker hoists up Shango and is poised to place him in the back of the hearse. When Bear opens the door, Kamala emerges and works over the dead man. Shango then nails Bear with Ugandan giant along for the ride as Shango deposits the Taker into the back of the hearse. Whippleman, now with his wits about him at the wheel, reverses the hearse with The Undertaker inside as Shango and Kamala are standing on the back of the bumper. Bear is left laying in the aisle as the vehicle disappears through the curtain.
So sometimes my favorite thing about your rebooking is listening to you read your notes and stumble where you found bad grammar or something like that. You know what? I'm okay with this because I see that we can play off of this a few ways. And that's what always excites me the most, is that when it's not pigeonholed or when you don't pull a Tyrone and fuck over the next booker, which has actually been myself a few times. But I'm okay with this. I like that we're getting a bit of a BSK element in there with fucking Godfather and Undertaker. I like this a lot because I also love Kamala. I shouldn't love Kamala as much as I do, but goddamn, I love that man.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like at this point we had Kamala in. He had been in the WWF in the 80s at certain points for runs. He had a couple of matches with Hogan, I think 86, 87 area. Here, I feel like Kamala's run could have been a little bit more substantial. I definitely feel as though he didn't necessarily need to be someone that The Undertaker ran through so quickly. This is the reason why I put Shango with Whippleman, because Whippleman was with Kamala already. So I sort of felt like, why not put these two together? The gimmicks fit as a team. I really like the thought of them perhaps having tag team matches. I thought that the visual of The Undertaker being placed inside the hearse and then having Papa Shango and Kamala riding the back of the hearse and being reversed back into the bowels of the building as Paul Bear's knocked out on the ground. I thought that would be a very powerful visual. And this would probably be one of the first times we saw any vulnerability in The Undertaker's character as well. So while he got the win, he didn't necessarily win the war, so to speak.
Can we do a quick sidebar right now and talk about Harvey Whippleman?
Sure.
When you think the greatest managers, you never think of him, but he got stuck. Like, he got sidelined with some of the worst gimmicks ever and worst wrestlers ever to manage, but he always made it work. Like, you look at him with Sid. Was Sid a great wrestler? We know my opinion on him. No. He was fine. He was a big guy. Harvey made it work. He put him with Kamala. Again, not a great worker, but Harvey made it work. You put him with the Giant Gonzalez, one of the absolute worst workers of all time. Harvey Whippleman made it work. I don't think that he gets enough fucking love for the managerial experience that he did. He also became a WWF official. And for those of you that don't know, Harvey Whippleman is a former WWF Women's Champion.
Yeah, I don't know. I liked him as a referee. I didn't think he was necessarily a bad manager. I don't really have a lot of thoughts on him one way or the other, to be honest with you. I get your points in terms of what he's able to accomplish with talents, but
I liked him with Sid for the most part. Like, I liked that look where he had kind of like the newspaper boy hat, the bow tie, the suspenders. He looked like a pipsqueak. And I think it made sense because he also had this weirdly deep, groveled voice, which did not match up for a man of his stature. You hear him talk, you would think he would sound like a Bill Alfonso or something along those lines, but he did not at all. It was like Brian Pillman. where again, the voice didn't always line up. But I think Harvey does not get enough love. And I just want to take 1 second to say thank you, Harvey Whippleman, Downtown Bruno, whatever you want to call yourself. We at the Good Friends, Better Enemies podcast salute you, and you are the manager of the year for 2022 for us.
I have to say,
whether likes it or not.
I think my favorite thought about Harvey Whippleman as a manager is when he was managing Bertha Faye.
Jesus Christ. You know, I can't argue that. That's fucking perfect. You win this one.
Yeah, even he sang her theme song too. So
I'm well aware of that, and I'm not gonna lie, Jay, I know you're definitely more of a theme mark than I am, but there are a few that make it into my rotation on a regular basis. Bertha Faye's is one of them. Jesse James singing fucking With My Baby Tonight is probably in my, if I were to look at my Spotify top 10 at the end of the year, I bet you that song's in there.
It's a decent track. I can't lie to you.
Well, up next on the card, I'm just going to cut you off right now. We're going to go off the sidebar and keep going. But up next, they did a weird thing. So if you were in the attendance live, you saw a match that was not on the actual card. It was on a Coliseum home video exclusive. And it was Tatanka and the Berserker. Are we acknowledging that or no?
The next match on the card is your main event of the evening, and it is for the World Wrestling Federation Intercontinental Championship. It is your champion, Bret Hitman Hart, going up against Davey Boy Smith, the British Bulldog.
Okay, so that makes sense that we're not acknowledging that random dark match that happened. I don't know why they did that in the first place. I get it. They probably wanted to calm the crowd down a little bit. But yeah, this main event, when you think Intercontinental Championships, especially the matches that really matter, other than Steamboat and Savage and Shawn and Scott Hall at Mania 10, this is probably in the top, like this is the top three right now. This match is fucking incredible. The finish for it, the storyline, having Diana right there, not sure if she's supposed to be with her husband or her brother, not wanting them to tear it apart. Everything about this match was fan-fucking-tastic. Although, being said, if you change this and have Bret being the winner, I'm really not mad at that either.
No, the match is staying exactly how it is. I think this is one of those ones you can't change. It's one of the most celebrated matches in WWF history. We certainly hear about it every year in August or July. You start hearing, people talking about SummerSlams of years past, and so obviously this one couldn't change. I left it as is. I enjoyed the match too. I went back and rewatched it about a week ago in preparation for these notes and for this particular event. I really enjoyed the match, but I will be honest, and I'm not trying to be critical, I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I did. I know that there was a match that these two guys had at In Your House in December of 1995. It was called Seasons Beatings, and it was Bulldog versus Bret. Bret was the champion, World Wrestling Federation champion, and I would argue that match was better than this one. Now, mind you, that match had color, so maybe that might have been part of the reason. It was a little bit more of a brawling type match rather than this scientific match. I always prefer scientific matches over other types of presentations. I always like a good technical wrestling match. But for some reason, I just felt, maybe it's because I've seen this match so many times that I just wasn't quite as into it as I had been in the past. It's still a phenomenal match. Don't misunderstand me, but I just, as much as I think it's an absolutely phenomenal encounter, for anybody who hasn't seen that In Your House match from December 95, I highly recommend you go out of your way to watch it.
So what you're saying is you definitely prefer short-haired Bulldog to long-haired Bulldog.
Oh, that's not even a question, of course. I think that the Bulldog's prime, the best years of his career, were 95 through 97.
You know what? This is where it gets tricky, because I also think the Bulldog's prime was between 85 and 87 as a tag wrestler, but I can't argue that either. It's like he had this weird moment between 87 and 94 where it's like, yeah, I'm here, but I'm so jacked up on steroids that I can't move.
I think that's the disconnect for me, is that Bulldog, to me, seeing him and knowing him from my childhood, when I started watching in 96, the Bulldog was there. He was lean and mean. He was looking really good, very muscular, obviously a big jacked up guy, but he looked sort of like a lean muscle mass rather than what he had been in years previous. So when I went back and I looked at tape in the beginning of my fandom, watching these WrestleMania 8s and what have you, watching the various events from the early 90s and 80s, it was hard for me to reconcile that the Bulldog was that big. And I thought that he was absolutely too big for his frame. Here at Wembley, he had dropped some weight. He looked more like the Bulldog we'd see in a few years gone by in the 95, 96 area. He was looking a little bit more lean at this point. But if you look at Bulldog, say in 91, he was so huge. He was almost twice the size of what he would end up being. It was too much for me. And I didn't, not to say he wasn't a good worker, he was a great worker, but I just felt like he was so much better at that, 250 range, 245 range.
So to put it in a completely different perspective here, and I know it's not the same reasoning whatsoever, but Bulldog 91, kind of like Taker in, I don't know, when did he face Roman and it didn't go over well? 2017. Yeah, so kind of the same, where they can do so much better, but they're just not. Whether it's because of steroids or because of injuries or because of being out of shape, you never want to see a performer that way. You want to remember them the way that you love them. It's like, if you're a classic professional wrestling fan, or especially a Jake the Snake fan or a Yokozuna fan, don't go watch Heroes of Pro Wrestling. Never watch that fucking pay-per-view.
Yeah, I've never seen it, and I don't have any desire to see it. But I would disagree with you to one degree in terms of your analogy. I understand where you're going with it, but I feel for me, the Bulldog was still performing at an extremely high level in 91. It's not that. It's just he was too muscular for his frame, which was a disconnect for me. And I preferred a quicker, leaner Bulldog who was a little bit more aerial in his offense. Not to say that Bulldog was a high flyer by any stretch, certainly not at that point in his career, but I just thought that the Bulldog looked so much better at that weight that he would be in 95, 96. As for The Undertaker, I mean, he's recognized it himself that he shouldn't have been in the ring that year. He was injured. He was a couple of months off of a hip replacement. He should have sat that particular year's Mania out. So I think that they're sort of apples and oranges, but I definitely see where you're going for sure.
Well, all right, fair. That's, you know what? I don't really have anything to add to that conversation. It was kind of a weird comparison for me to make, but I think you know where I was going with it. Overall, I'm going to give your SummerSlam 92. If we're giving a rating out of 10, I'll give it a 6, only because there was a lot at the beginning I didn't really like, but it really picked up at the end, and I love that. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. I think 6 is a little harsh, but I'll take it.
I'll give you a 7, but that's the highest I'm going.
All right, that sounds nice.
But yeah, I enjoyed it. But as always, I enjoyed our conversation more than anything because you're my little schnookums.
Well, that warms the cockles of my heart.
Even the subcockles, to quote Dennis Leary.
Sure, that sounds good.
All right. Well, on a fun note, what do I have to do next week? What bullshit are you saddling me with?
I think that we are going to round out the year of 1992, my friend. We are going to go to the Survivor Series in 1992, and we're going to try and see if we can't go around the world here in terms of the pay-per-views of that illustrious year, 1992. Now, the Survivor Series of that particular year was a bit of a challenge. I think that there were some creative plans that fell through based on the fact that both Bulldog and Warrior kind of got popped for HGH. I don't want to speak out of school. I believe that's what the story is. And both men were figured in quite prominently into the plans of the Survivor Series, but left very shortly before that. Certainly that doesn't have necessarily any bearing on our booking, but it is going to be an interesting to see how you segue out of SummerSlam into Survivor Series. I'm very, very curious to see how you round out the year.
Well, that's the thing. It's not only how I have to tie this together, but I have to pay attention to what our good friend Tyler did when he rebooked Rumble 93 and Mania 9, and I have to find a way to tie everything together. So you made me do some homework, and that's okay. I'm going to figure out a way to make this all work, and I don't know how yet, but I can tell you that there's no nails. We've agreed that there's no nails.
Yes. I think that Nails is going to be sitting this particular one out. He's going to be on the bench. In fact, I think Nails never really existed in our particular multiverse here. So I'm very curious to see. I mean, the Warrior still has some opportunity to return. Will he make an appearance at some point in the next couple of months? I don't know. We'll have to see what Tyrone comes up with. I'm very excited to see whether or not we still have a New World Wrestling Federation champion in the month of October of 1992. I don't know where we're going, folks, but I do know this. We have concluded our SummerSlam 1992 booking, and Tyrone is going to pick up that mantle and bring us home in 92 with Survivor Series. And it is Survivor Series season. It is fast approaching. I'm excited about Survivor Series, mainly because I get to spend time with my good buddy Tyrone, crack a couple beers, have a couple of Swedish meatballs, have ourselves a good old-fashioned time.
I'm not Swedish, though, so can we have, like, Dutch meatballs instead?
Well, if you ain't Dutch, you ain't much, pal.
Oh, go fuck yourself. All right, well, on that note, this has been a fun episode, but as always, you can find us on social media at good_enemies on Twitter, good_enemies on Instagram, and on Facebook at the Good Friends Better Enemies podcast. And like I said, kids, I promise you a TikTok is coming. We are going to wait until we are in person and we can find some younger human beings who may know TikTok a little bit better to teach us how to use it. Is that correct, Jay?
Oh, sure. Sounds good.
Well, I'm going to take this one on for once now, and I want to say thank you, everybody, for listening to a new episode of the Good Friends Better Enemies podcast. For myself, for Jay, for Nails, who never existed, for any fast food restaurant in the world who wants to give us free food, hey, Arby's, we're looking at you. We love you. This has been a brand new episode of the Good Friends Better Enemies podcast.
Bye! Doink the Clowns premiering soon.